In the ring we stand tall, words are blades that never fall. Debate like warriors brave, every thought we give and save. Through the noise we cut clean, spirited mind sharp and keen. With a spark that lights the night, join us in this epic fight. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts clean. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance in this arena. There's no chance to escape the fight by law. Dive in deep and search for more. From heartfelt talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome talks to fierce debates, we explore what fate creates. Side by side we seek the light. In the dark our minds ignite. Welcome to the Spartan Arena, where minds clash and thoughts clean. In the heat of every word, truth and insight will be heard. Buckle up and take your stance in this arena. There's no chance to escape the fight by law. Dive in deep and search for more.
Welcome to the spot. It's time to ignite. Oh yeah. Operation Hangout. The feeling's just right. Chilling with the crew. We're ready to groove. Opinions flying high. Come on, let's move. Hang out all night long, all night. Laughing and debating, playing our song. Oh yeah. Share your thoughts, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Operation Hangout, let's reach for the sky. Let's fly. Pull up a chair, let's get in the zone. Voices blending smooth like a funky trombone. Oh yeah. Topics from the heart, making us think. With a twist and a shout, raise up your drink. Cheers. Hang out all night long, all night. Laughing and debating, playing our song. Oh yeah. Share your thoughts, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Operation Hangout, let's reach for the sky. Let's fly. Bring it down, shake it up, feel the beat. With every word we share, the circle's complete. Living loud, think it proud, that's what we do. Oh yeah. Join the club, come on through, we're waiting for you. Alright. Hang out all night long, all night. Laughing and debating, playing our song. Oh yeah. Share your thoughts, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Operation Hangout, let's reach for the sky. Let's fly. Hang out.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Spartan Institute Network. I am not your host tonight. I am here to introduce two of my what's the word I'm looking for? New hosts who are gonna be taking over Thursday night. I cannot introduce them both at once, so I'm gonna do the best I can. So let's get the president out of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for our president. All right, let's get the next guy in here. Let's get Coach in here. All right, gentlemen, get over from here. I am out of here. Enjoy and have a great show.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be here on this launch of a new show, Next Gen Training. Shout out to our guy Mandrell in the building tonight. Thank you for stopping by, sir. Certainly appreciate that. And but yeah, so we and me and Coach, we are of a similar generation. That's why that music when it was playing on the way in, I was kind of bobbing a little bit because you get that funk guitar going, and so it's definitely going to be something that's going to get our attention. But yeah, we are here to be of service to everyone. Quite frankly, certainly, where this is not a sex based male or female, not even young or old. We're here to just share some positive perspectives on how people can be successful. We're not here going to be giving you specifics. I think you still need to go out and get those. But so much of success has to do with one with mindset and the other with soft skills. And so, certainly through this platform, we want to share based on our experience, based on what we've learned and what we've shared with other people. We both have extensive backgrounds. And then, in fact, certainly I would like, certainly for, Coach to start out, give mine. And he can certainly give, he can certainly give his background on coaching and just our experience with that and what drives us to this. But first and foremost, I just want to say thank you, Coach Ferg, for signing up to do this with me. And certainly I'm looking forward to us being able to have some positive input. From what I understand, you're calling in from your private little bunker there. It's like you're in that secret location that nobody knows about. But first of all, how are you doing today, sir? And talk a little bit about your background and what you're bringing into this what you're bringing to this space.
No, what's up, brother Bennett, man? Listen, man, I appreciate everybody joining us today, man. Again, like Mr. Bennett stated, man, next gen training again is gender neutral. You know, I appreciate you, brother Bennett, even just reaching out to me, wanting to collaborate with me, and just trying to provide great positive information for those that are behind us to sort of move the needle forward, man, to get themselves in a better space, both mentally and physically. So yeah, my experience comes with. I just celebrated my 50th year involved in sports. That's playing and coaching. My 50th year this past summer. I've spent the last 30 years coaching various sports. I know basketball, of course, football, of course. Um, what else? It was baseball. Um, and I've coached both male and female teams. I've worked in some states we call CPS. In Illinois, it's called DCFS. I've worked in the high schools for about 15 years, dealing with I guess, the least fortunate of us, young males, females. Some were adopted, some were in foster care, um, some were in foster homes, some were just returning to civilian life after serving time behind bars, incarcerated. So yeah, I'm just elated to be here today. In our first show, we'll hopefully throughout the upcoming weeks, we can at least provide you with some great information again that you can apply maybe to your own life, or someone who may be in a space where they need to reach out to someone, or just have someone just provide them with some positive information just to move forward and be in a better space. So again, man, I'm excited to be here, man. It's, like Mr. Bennett said, I'm in my little hideout, honeycomb hideout. It was
Looks nice though. That background, that wood, that looks
yeah,
very
it's
natural,
pretty.
very soothing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. We just pulled up about 30 minutes ago. Went
Oh,
through some mountain ranges. I don't know. We probably 1,000 feet above sea level right now, but hey, we're gonna
nice,
make it work. I'm
nice.
surprised my doggy's quiet. My wife is over there looking at me with the twinkle. So I'm glad, we won't be on here all night fighting and so yeah, man.
Yes.
So I appreciate you again, man. Salute the Sparta Network, man.
Absolutely, that definitely. Thanks for the opportunity to certainly present this. And yeah, I agree. I think certainly we've seen in recent months, and if not recent years, there's a certain content level that we're looking to again bring some balance to, because again, we can all find out what's wrong with the world and what's wrong with young people and whatnot, but there's still a lot to be gained from that. And if anything, I was inspired today because my last daughter graduated today with honors from Rutgers Business School, and so again, very proud moment for certainly for the Bennett family. That's 3 for 3. So if my wife and I, if we're looked at certainly as parents, if not coaches, we've so far we've done a pretty good job at getting the girls out, and that's really been a motivation for me. For why I continue to do what I do. It's weird because I've talked to some people in my age bracket, and there's a cynicism that oftentimes I see in them in terms of the way things are. But my thing is, I can't afford to be cynical because I'm sending 3 young women out into the world, and I'm hoping they can be certainly transformative agents in the world. And so I have to be optimistic, and I have to certainly set an example, certainly through my own life, as far as what the not only what the expectations I have for them, but also show them that I'm still contributing, that I'm still giving. I'm at an age, we're both in our 50s, but I don't feel it most of the time. And I'm trying to, as much as, life that's been given to me, I want to certainly be able to give back. Certainly in these spaces. So just a little bit about my background. Now, again, I don't have the extensive sports background that you may have. In fact, I was a nerd growing up, and I was not so much coordinated. So Doc is not up next. Doc is somewhere, but he may join the show a little bit later on. And if he does, he's going to be on this couch right over here and just kind of snoring. So I kind of mute a little bit so he doesn't snore too much. But yeah, but I always certainly loved sports. I was always into sports, but I started playing organized sports very late. I was 14 years old when I played my first official, got on the team, and the coaches, they kind of let me on just because they didn't want to see me dragging. But I carried the clipboard because he cut me the second year. He cut me. And then, but I carried the clipboard. I carried the stat sheets. I did all that kind of stuff because I just wanted to be involved. And so, but I started to get a little bit good at sports once I got to college and whatnot. And even afterwards, I started to learn the game a little bit. But really where things changed for me is when I started doing like physical training. So I stopped playing basketball for some time. That was my passion. And then I got into the gym. And the gym was such a transformative place for me where I really started learning things. I was always inspired by that movie, Pumping Iron. I remember seeing that when I was very young. And that movie just inspired me since the day I saw
What
it.
you
And I
gonna eat?
couldn't wait.
Oh, get them chips out of there.
So I couldn't wait to get, for it to come on DVD or whatever, because it used to come on PBS TV or whatnot. So you had to catch it when it was on. But I was always inspired by that. And then, after training for a certain period of time, I was also, gaining knowledge and started sharing that knowledge with other people. And then I decided to adopt a new training methodology. And in fact, I got a certification in it. And then I started training other people. And so I've trained with, certainly with teenagers, um, but even, older adults, men, women, anybody who wanted to have a different thought process when it came to training. I started doing that. And then not only there, but also in other matters in my church. Certainly I've been involved in the church for a number of years. I've done, many Sunday schools and Bible studies with teenagers, with college students and whatnot. So I'm all, that age bracket has always been appealing to me because it's around those ages where they start to ask questions in terms of, what's life really about? And how does, what we're reading in the Bible or what have you, how does that sort of apply to like life? And some of the principles that, that we're sharing here, they may sound, familiar, but, a lot of times they come from a spiritual source as well. So I've always been involved with teenagers and young people for quite some time. And so and that's certainly something, just having teenage daughters, and now again the young women that they've grown into, and just seeing the need, especially with the men that that are around them. A lot of times, either they didn't have a good father figure growing up, or an involved parent, or what have you, and so I still have sort of like a fire in the belly, so to speak, to make myself of service. In fact, my life goal, my retirement goal, and when that size happened, I've always dreamed about opening up some sort of camp, some sort of retreat, kind of in a place similar to where you're at right now. Get some young men, 8 to 18 years old, and we get them up here, and we train in at 6 in the morning, and
Yeah,
all kinds of life skills. So putting them in a position, in an environment where they can absorb that information and get out of the sometimes the hectic worlds that they're in. So that's actually my retirement goal, is to fashion that. So this space here may be certainly one of the beginnings of us being able to engage, and spread some seeds that certainly, when that happens, God willing, that I can take some of what we're doing here and put it in front of, like, real people, and have interaction and build relationships,
for sure.
so that we can share some things with them. So that's really, again, certainly what drives us. I just wanted people to kind of know who we were and what we were about, and just our what our backgrounds are. Just let people know that this is in earnest, and certainly, our goal here is to help and assist. And so as long as we can do that and be productive in this place, then certainly it'll be my privilege to be on this platform every week. But before we get
For sure.
started, I just want to, first and foremost, every show we are going to start with a sort of assessment of how everyone's doing. So for everyone who comes in to our space, now if I can get this to show, I'm kind of new with this platform. So if Sparta, if you're in the back, yes, you can bring this up. So
Yes, sir.
we want to take the temperature of everybody who kind of comes into this space, because a lot
Yes,
of
sir.
people say, "How you doing?" or "What's up?" but no one really kind of goes in deep in these things. So we find this sort of this pulse, this pi pulse that we want to um, introduce, and obviously the pies, the PIES, the P's for physical, the I's for intellectual, E for emotional, and S for spiritual. And again, I got this from Coach. So Coach, if you want to illuminate on what was the mindset, thought process behind this. And again, we're going to start off each show with first checking in with each other and how we're doing, but then we're also going to be asking for those who certainly join us, what is your pi pulse? How are you doing? And are you doing things, if you're lacking in a particular area, what things can you be doing to improve in those particular areas? So Coach, if you want to just illuminate this a little bit more, and how we want to use this every week.
Oh, of course. Yeah. The premise of the pie chart that you see here and the way it actually works is I would do what you call a check-in, as Brother Bennett stated. So I'm going to use these letters here as an acronym, and I'm going to describe my state based off the actual uh, letter and the word that it describes. So physically, my physical body feels. Now, before I say it, what I'm going to say, there's empty words that you can't not use. I'm good and I'm okay are
Mhm.
not allowed in the pie. You have to describe exactly how you are in that state. So physically, I have some physical things going on with me. I think my doctor said I may have some arthritis starting to develop in my shoulder and in my hands. So that's an adjustment. My grip is not as strong as it used to be, especially on my left hand. I'm left-handed. So physically, it's an adjustment. Again, like you say, we in our middle age and we ain't running as fast and we ain't push up and as we used to. So that's an adjustment for me. Intellectually, I feel, well, let me say that I don't feel, I believe I'm getting smarter, but I'm also getting a little bit more concerned. I'm learning a lot more about others who are now in particular spaces, both young and old, with this YouTube thing, and that encourages me to continue to uh, read up on different aspects of life, self improvement, and even in just encouraging others. So, yeah, I love the intellectual part of it because it keeps me sharp, it keeps me thinking. So emotionally, I'm relaxed now. I was a little anti. I was a little worked up on our drive here because we had to go through maybe 10 miles of windy. I'm talking about 6 inches from the car, 6 inches from the railroad, but we made it just before dark. I think I logged on about 10 minutes before we supposed to start. So I'm okay with that now. So, but now I'm in a space where I'm more relaxed and calm, things like that. Spiritually, I'm connected to the space that I'm in here with my wife, and I'm connected to this space here with you, Brother Bennett, because it's going to allow me just to be more in tune and with who you are, and just trying to grow this whole space with the Sparta Network, and making it a platform that young and old can tune into and get some knowledge from. So yeah, now when I'm finished, I would say I am in, meaning I am giving it all and passing the torch to you.
Awesome, awesome. Well, as far as for me physically, it's a mixed bag as always. You figure my foot, for some reason, over the last few days, it just started hurting for no reason. So when I walk, it's kind of painful and it's kind of hurting my gait a little bit. This may have happened in the past, but we're at an age where you could be hurting for a couple days and then things just for some reason go away and you just don't know why. Other than that, I'm physically strong. I'm big, which when I was getting dressed to go to my daughter's graduation, I was going through my wardrobe a little bit. So I looked for I needed Rutgers colors is red, scarlet red. So my wife and I we wore red tops, and I had two shirts, two button shirts. One I thought I was going to hulk out of it. I really the shoulders, the arms, the it was so tight and it had no give, no elasticity to it at all. So that one went into we have a goodwill pile. So, and I've made a thing to say for every new clothing that I buy, I must give away two articles of clothing. Because to me, I can be like a compiler. My closet could be full of stuff haven't worn in years. So I'm like, why am I holding on to this? So I need to give it away. So I had to give one shirt. The shirt that I did wear was very tight. There's a jacket that I wore. Again, very strong girls back. Now, this isn't fat, right? I mean, this is, because I still train very hard. So I'm still growing, muscularly. And so that was just a revelation. Like, wow, so one, the clothing definitely needed to go. And secondly, just the indication that even at my age that I'm still, getting stronger and getting bigger and the muscle mass and whatnot that's there. So physically, outside of the foot and the little tennis elbow, I'm feeling pretty good. Intellectually, constantly feeding my mind with information. Certainly, I love listening to debates. I'm a big debate guy, especially when the debate is amongst equals and debates that can be done respectively. So, so I'm always looking to learn. I was telling Sparta the other night, I'm a huge history guy, especially with the 60s and 70s. So Watergate is certainly something that is something I'm always exploring and getting into. And so I decided to, watch some more documentaries on that and just learn about that history and time, certainly in the country. So I'm always feeding my mind. And then, again, spiritually, certainly always looking to grow in that space in terms of how to be, how to understand the faith I profess more. But overall in very good spirits. Very excited about this platform, and then emotionally, I'm good. It's funny even today because I'm not. It's weird. It's one thing I've never been with my three daughters graduating. I was not over emotional about it. I felt like, or I feel, I guess it happened today that I'm like a coach. And you notice how sometimes when the game is over, that you win, the players are excited, but the coach could be kind of monotone. He'd be like, okay, comes into the locker room, okay, good game. All right. I'll see you guys Monday at for practice at 3 o'clock. That's kind of how it is with me, because a lot of times, even with the accomplishment, I don't celebrate, and maybe this is something I need to do a bit more. I don't necessarily celebrate the accomplishment as much, because to me, the diploma or the whatever, that's just the result of all the work that you've been putting in the whole time. So my thing is always enjoy the moment as you're kind of going through it, and but just get ready for the next, because if you rest on your laurels, you could lose the next game. So like I said, I got one daughter, she's going to medical school in August. And so my thing now is helping her to prepare mentally, spiritually, whatever, for that one, because not only is she going to college, she's going out of the country. And so, helping her get prepared to that. So emotionally, I tend to keep it very sort of steady, not to get overly high nor low, but just to make sure that I'm ready and available. And it also helps, gives me clarity, especially when I have to deal with emotional people, especially women. I got all women in the house. So it's like, me maintaining a stability in my emotions helps me to assess things a little bit clearer, and it helps me to, interact with them in a way that they need at the time, and not necessarily buy into the emotions, or add fuel to the fire if emotions are getting out of control. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So hopefully, in that description, hopefully I'm in, and that hopefully we can, certainly get into the main topic tonight. And if there's there might have been a little bit of confusion on the title tonight. So we're going to be talking about these mental zones. All right. So there's zones of development that people tend to go through on a regular basis. And we want to sort of talk about this and how all these zones sort of relate together. All right. And some of these zones, some of these places, things you might have heard of. But I think what would be interesting about this is that we're looking to put it into a context where if you might have thought about these different types of zones individually, how do they work together? And so, with that, let me see if I can bring up the other presentation on these different zones. So if we can have here, so we're going to start out with this. And again, Coach, he certainly was a major sort of contributor to this. And so we're going to kind of step through these things here. So comfort zone is something that I'm sure a lot of us have heard about. But just from your point of view, how have you approached comfort zone? How have you explained it to people? And certainly when you're working with young people, this could be a tricky area for some people when it comes to how to attack it, how to embrace it, and how it can be in some ways destructive in someone's life. So what are your thoughts on this? And I give my thoughts on it.
Okay, so the premise of the comfort zone is it describes exactly what it is, right? So if you're going to look at an individual, my comfort zone, say if I'm look at it as if you were out at a large gathering of people. Mr. Ben, I think you heard the song before. Give me some elbow room.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Give me some
Yeah.
elbow room.
Right.
You don't like people crowding in our space, and people get a little frantic when people are getting too close. I'm sort of like that when I'm outside and people get too close. The first thing I do is throw up my forearm, to make sure that they don't get all, 2 feet, 6 inches away. And, so and it's pretty much as an individual, what you're comfortable with. Some people use the comfort zone to the extension of their arms, how far their arms can reach. That's the comfort zones that they apply to themselves. That's left, right, front, and back. So anything that you're comfortable with in that, again, like I say, mine is always my forearm, because playing football, playing sports, I'm quick to put up my forearm. So, and it depends on each individual. And also that comfort zone can apply to where you live, your home, places you're familiar with, your family, your friends, your school. You see some young people who may act a certain way with their friends that they may not act at home, or with people that they're not familiar with. So, your comfort zone, again, it can apply to you individually. And once you leave, it can apply also within your home and within the community. Some people are comfortable with just circle navigating their neighborhood per se.
Mhm.
They don't go outside their neighborhoods. I've been held some sessions with some young men where they just spoke about their neighborhood. They
Mm.
didn't go 8 blocks left and 8 blocks right. They didn't go downtown. They didn't go to the beach. They didn't enjoy the attractions of the city. They were comfortable staying in their little block, 6 block radius on a daily basis. And so that's how you can look at the comfort zone. Again, it can apply with yourself, your family, your friends, school. Some people's comfort zones, even in sports, are actually on the field or the court. They're, even musicians, their comfort zone can be in the
Mm.
studio,
Very
performing
true.
on
Yeah.
stage,
In fact.
entertainers. So
Mm.
it's all how you apply it individually and what you're comfortable with. You're going to talk a little bit more freely, a little bit more open, various topics, and then you may step outside of that, and your body will naturally tense up until you feel a little bit more comfortable. My last point with this is when I first have a group of young men or women, I have to the biggest obstacle is to get them to sort of extend their comfort zone. They're comfortable not talking and speaking, and well, they uncomfortable when they have to speak. You know how people say when I have to speak in front of people, an audience, I get nervous.
Yes.
So they not in they outside their comfort zone. But then you see them 5 minutes later with their friends. They over laughing, throwing jokes, things like that. So one of my biggest obstacles is to just get them to understand that they can expand their comfort zone without being uncomfortable. And it's a part of life. When you apply for jobs, you graduate high school, now you don't have that comfortability of that space. Now you got to expand it. So yeah, it's a never ending journey within the comfort zone,
Yeah.
because so
Yeah. I've had a very kind of interesting um, relationship, if you will, with the comfort zone.
mhm.
Certainly, all the things as far as again being environments where you're safe, like you said, your home and your comforts. Always sort of cherish those. And then, but when I got into my 20s, especially when I got into my career and different circles and panels that I've been involved in, and different just mentorship that I've gotten over the years, I got a very different view of what comfort zone was. And it was almost couched as an evil place. It was like comfort zone is where people go to die, and don't stay in your comfort zone and just fear it. And if you feel yourself getting into the comfort zone, get out of it immediately. And
Mhm.
especially if you're doing business, if you're doing anything that's new for the first time and whatnot. And so I've read books, many books over the years that talk about that and whatnot, and it was always sort of couched sort of as a negative. And so, so I've always had a sort of a love-hate relationship with it, again, just based on how I was taught over the years, that growth happens. And again, a lot of this I get from my the gym and from training, because I've always had this mindset. Look, if your training doesn't leave you on the floor, or if you're not gassed afterwards, you didn't really train. Or did you really push yourself out of your comfort zone? A lot of people, you get on the bench or whatever, and you do them 10 reps with, buck 45, no problem, whatever. But I say, let's put a little more weight on the bar. You're like, nah, man, I don't want to stretch it. I want to push it. And my thing is, if I didn't see that strain, that struggle, I'm like, what we here for? So again, even with training, getting people out of the comfort zone seems to always be, or to fall in love with being uncomfortable, has certainly been a mindset that I've seen over the years, that at times in my life I've embraced over the years. And one of the things now that I find myself, even at my age, I've always found myself, a little restless, if you will. So like if I was in a spot like where you're going to, where you're at right now, certainly I would say maybe even as far back as maybe 10 years ago, I would have hated it because there's nothing like, what am I going to do? Like, I didn't know how to unwind. I didn't know how to just relax. If I went on vacation, it was about, we got to do this, and we have to have an agenda and whatnot. And like, I never went
Mhm.
to a place just to chill. But I'm realizing as I'm getting older that, that may not be, again, the best thing either. There's a time for some rest and getting away from things and where you do nothing. And as the older I get, I appreciate that a lot more than I did. So yes, I think there's a time to work and there's a time to be uncomfortable. But being in your comfort zone doesn't have to be a bad thing. But just like anything else, too much of anything can wind up being a negative over some time. But I remember how comfort zones used to be demonized for many years. And so now, I kind of have it in such a way is that you essentially work for your comfort zone. You know what I'm saying? Like if you put the work in, you should be able to enjoy the fruits of your labors and you should be able to, smell the roses, so to speak. But I've seen so many people over the years so driven that they don't enjoy the ride, they don't enjoy the process, or the fruits of their labors, and so yeah. So I've kind of certainly rethought this. I think some care needs to be done when when you stay here too much, but it doesn't have to be the boogeyman. So I mean, what's your thoughts on that, or have you gone through that? Because I know you've always been active and whatnot. So have you felt it sometimes, or have you been exposed to that where the comfort zone may have been couched in such a way where it was something to avoid, or have you always made time for and appreciated that?
I've always made time and appreciated it. I grew up in a house with six women in the house, and
Mm,
my brother and my father. So, when I was able to get into a space of my own, I just sort of just cherished it in a sense. I used to remember laying in my bed, just like, man, this is my room. I got my bed. I got the fancy drawers up under the bed, which you pull out. I got, had my clothes. So yeah, it was real interesting when I was younger. But I'll say one of the things that sort of took me out of being in my comfort zone constantly. When I was in the military, for the last 2 years, I worked in housing. When soldiers, it could, well, yeah, colonels, generals, enlisted soldiers, when they were PCSing, meaning leaving the base, they had to clear housing. And I was a soldier working with civilians.
mhm.
And one of my tasks was to every Tuesday, I would have to go stand up on a stage, 30 to 150 people ranked higher than me.
Right.
And I have to
Yeah.
explain to them how they had to exit their housing
Mhm.
and what was the requirements to exit the housing so they could pass the inspection, because
Right.
everything went through an inspection.
Right.
And you talking about 4-star generals, not 4-star, I would say like 1-star, colonels, sergeants, captains, lieutenants. Hey, I have a question. And I had to explain to them. Sometimes I would get 8, 9 questions. So originally I was a little nervous.
Mhm.
But once I started doing it, I'll say about a third or fourth week of doing it, I became so comfortable and relaxed. I was able to explain myself thoroughly. They were giving me ovations at the end. They were writing in to the department I was working in, saying I did a good job. So that just sort of propelled me to be able to just sort of speak in front of any audience.
Right. Right.
So and again, I was a little nervous, like, man, I ain't gonna be no good. But once I got in my stride, I became more comfortable in that zone because I had to extend outside of myself.
Right.
And from there, man, it was on. It was on, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we can actually move to that next point. So again, comfort zone, like I said, I think a lot of people are familiar with. And like I said, you may have a dip, like I said, love hate like I did for some time, but then once you start to go outside that zone, that comfort zone, what are the other zones to look forward to? What are some of the other things that you can expect?
Mm-hmm.
So certainly one of the areas that we talk about is the fear zone. So you talked about that,
Mm-hmm.
that's now I don't sweat. I don't even sweat that much doing my workouts, but I'll sweat when I'm doing something for the first time, or if I'm nervous, or if there's like a situation and whatnot. So yeah, so the fear zone has certainly been something that I've battled over the years, so certainly, and a lot of times what happens is you try to find, like you said, excuses that I'm not prepared. I'm not ready for this. I mean, we could have had somebody who's on the show. It's like, are we really ready to do this show? For the
Mm-hmm.
first time and things, or even when we decide to show our faces on YouTube for the first time, because
Mm-hmm.
before the pandemic, I wasn't really into exposing myself this way, and I live a fairly public life. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people have handles and whatnot. It's like, nah, I kind of live the same way all the time. But a lot of that came through repetition as far as, again, public speaking. I mean, I remember I was in college, I took courses on public speaking and, and just the repetition of doing it, teaching, even like, you're teaching a Bible class or a Sunday school or something, just getting comfortable with rooms full of people and then, and just working through that. But again, that's a normal thing
Mm-hmm.
to be fearful. But over time, you realize that even if you can go through that fear zone, you'll always be better off because you come out on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we talk about fear being an acronym. We talk about false evidence appearing real. We can convince ourselves of so much of things that really have no basis in fact whatsoever. And we create monsters in our minds, or we
Mm-hmm.
overthink things. Um, and so I want to ask you a question, like how were you able to, with, well, I guess, with some of the young people that you work with, how were you able to get them? Because I mean, obviously, you had to go in and do it. You were basically just kind of thrown into the pool, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But what has been your approach to helping, especially with young people or even adults who had to do maybe what you did? How do you get them to kind of overcome or go through the fear zone and not retreating from it through excuses or any other reasons? So what's some strategies you might want to share in terms of how to help people overcome that?
Okay, I'll compartmentalize it from,
Sure.
I would say, sixth grade through high school. A lot of a lot of students, one of their biggest fears is to be viewed as the new word that they call a lame, right?
Hmm.
They sort of replaced the word nerd with a lame. So even some students who were smart would acquiesce to just sort of moseying along so they wouldn't be made fun of. So anytime I encountered a student like that, I had to play a little mind game, reverse psychology, and let them know that you are supposed to be smart.
Hmm.
And when you bring yourself down a level, then you are afraid of who you are.
Yeah. Which gets into
And
another point here.
yes,
This lack of self confidence that that's
yes,
oftentimes exhibited by people, for sure.
yes. And when I meet a lot of young people, they lack self confidence, males and females, because of course, in some time in our community, we can tend to joke on somebody too long and
Hmm.
you know
It's the one,
and
yeah.
put them down based off little incidents that a lot of people struggle to come out of, and I've always had to tell most that, listen, you are supposed to be smart. That's why you make the good grades.
Hmm.
Smart people typically are bosses and supervisors and owners when we all get out of school. And that and I had to be consistent with them.
Hmm.
I never approached young people in saying that things like what they can't do. And it takes time because again, they have to, just like most of us, we have to learn to trust someone
Hmm.
and be consistent in my message. See,
Yeah.
it could be five of y'all. I want to give all five of y'all the same message. And then if I need to do some extensive one on or some one on one with you, I will pull you to the side and put the expectation that you are smart, you
Hmm.
are talented,
Hmm.
you are capable.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And again, it doesn't just happen in one conversation because they also looking at me on how I move and what I say to others.
Yeah.
So, and once a lot of them got over those fears, you could see a change by the end of the semester or the next grading period. Because with students, you want them to see. I always wanted them to improve their grades. So, and I would talk about that it's a process.
Yes.
So I didn't. And some students, young people have low self esteem based off their weight.
Hmm.
And let them know, and I used to use this. You've been under mama. You got baby fat. It's just baby fat. Everybody
Hmm.
goes through that. So
Hmm.
now, start taking little concessions. Doing commercials. When you lose your last man on your game, when you run out of ammo, just do 10 push-ups, do 10 sit-ups, just do some leg lifts, just do something, start small and build up. And over time, 6, 8 months down the road, now your body's changing, your confidence is building. So, and then in some of my adults, I listen to a lot of other people and they come, well, what I believe that I hear from them is that they approach it is that their feelings are the only thing that matter,
Hmm.
how they feel in it. And what I saw a lot of, and that was a mistake a lot of people made. They focused on how they feel. When I'm
Right.
trying to, yes, today you feel a way about whatever incident or whatever situation got you in this feeling, right?
Hmm.
But tomorrow you may not have that feeling.
Yeah.
So, it's a building block. You have
Indeed.
to know.
Indeed. Yeah. Because I want to talk about this last point with certainly within the fear zone. A lot of, again, where does that come from? You talk about the consistency, how you must have that message of again encouraging and having people overcome. But a lot of this stuff that's done is coming from other people. So again, the fat jokes might be coming from in the home,
Yes.
or the simp stuff or the lame stuff that could be coming from those who are closest to them.
Yes.
And so just because, again, that's why I never was like, well, you can't just go to a motivational seminar and just kind of get it and then be like, okay, now I'm good now. And I could just kind of go out. Nah, it's like, it has to, just as your mind has been fed for a lot of kids, it starts very young and it just continues for some time.
Yes.
You're going to have to just as much counter it with a constant continual affirmation of what is, what your potential is, what you could do, and help people overcome these things. I mean, it's like programming. We talk about programming. Well, again, a lot of these fears come through the programming of others. Now, I wouldn't do that because of this, that, and the third, or someone's out to get me, or they'll get you, and just a lot of things that have no basis in fact. Again, the false evidence appearing real. And so for us, especially, like I started even when I'm with clients, like I said, I'm very consistent. Like my tone really doesn't change a whole lot. Like
Mhm.
when they come to me, I want them to be able to rely on me for a certain attitude. If my attitude is off for any reason, I could have had a bad day at work. I could have had something going on. But it is essential for my business, for what I do, to be able to maintain that consistency of thought that people can rely on, especially when the world or certainly even those closest to them are beating them up. So yeah, so certainly for those people, and we're going to certainly get into the next zone here in terms of you start to talk about it a little bit about again how we uh, uh, um, how do we deal or what helps us get through this fear zone, and then what comes out on the other side is certainly another level here. So we have yet another point called the learning zone.
Zone.
So again, so how do we when a person is getting all this negative at home. So again, you talked about this a little bit. Again, this affirmation. The fear zone is kind of like the symptoms of the illness,
Mm-hmm.
but then we have to treat it somehow. And how we treat it a lot of times is through learning.
Yes.
How you've been programmed, you have to be programmed differently. That means learning a new way of thinking, a new way of processing information, how you think about yourself. And it's great if you can get that on your own. But one thing I think that the good coaches and the mentors and the those who get positive, that's what they do. They help you to deal. They won't necessarily take care of things for you,
Mm-hmm.
but they will certainly give you some tools with which how you can start to see things a little bit bit differently. So one of the things with so obviously in the learning zone, you will um, learn how to deal with the challenges and problems, and one of the ways that you do that is through the acquisition of new skills. Can't help what's been already there, or you can't reform the stuff that's already there. You got to start doing something new. And I think that certainly what one thing I think we can agree on, both of us, is that again we teach people in new ways.
Yes.
Like I said, a new way of thinking, a new way of doing, and also speak to that from your experience as well, because not everyone learns necessarily in the same way. So we talk about this consistency, but that doesn't mean the same message necessarily for everybody
Correct.
in the same way. So talk about that, how being consistent, but also how do you deal with the individual that's in front of you. So talk about that.
I'll use it in my relationship to coaching football. Anytime that I've coached, you have what they call the stud guy, the guy that can do everything. It might be 2 or 3 guys like that. They can run,
I used
catch,
to call
block.
them gifted.
Yeah, they can do all of that, right? And then there's the guy first year coming out, may not even know how to do a 3-point stance, may not be able to learn how to know how to have a correct form for a jump shot.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be the kids that I would coach. I never, I never gave them a loud tone. I never said, "Oh man, you just weak. You can't do it." No, those would be the kids that I would put my arm around and say, "Hey," I would ask them, "Why are you here?" To learn to play football, learn to play basketball. So if that is the case, you have to be willing, going back to the initial zone, to step out of your comfort zone and challenge yourself. You have to be willing. You have to be willing to listen and practice what you've been taught.
Mm.
I do everything military style. We're going to go, we're going to sit in the classroom, we're going to write it out, we're going to talk about it. And then the next step is we're going outside and we're going to practice exactly what we talked about. And if we got to go back and do some retraining and walk through it 42 times till we finally get it, this is what we'll do.
Yeah.
And the kids are the players that were the good players. Now they would be the ones that I would be like, "Hey man, you can give me more than that. You better than that," because I knew that they can handle it.
Yeah.
But when I had them by themselves, hey, you are a leader. We need you to be your best.
That's
So
right.
I'm going to be on you more. I'm not going to let you mess around in practice. I want you to practice at a high level. So when we come to the game, I'm not yelling at nobody. I'm not going through. I'm just giving directives, and you're executing.
Yeah.
Whether we win or lose,
Mhm.
you've done your best.
Mhm.
Win or lose.
Yeah.
The last thing what I used to do. It's crazy. Football halftime. We go to an end zone, right? I used to always let my players sit down, take the helmet off, lay down, whatever you're gonna do. Give them 2 or 3 minutes just to woo-saw.
Yeah.
I would always do it. And then I would say, man, look over in the crowd. Who's over? Our parents. Yes, they came to see y'all play. You've been practicing all week. So now is the time to play the game. Whether we win or lose,
Mhm.
you go out there, you give it your best. You are one man to this 11-man machine. And if you're doing your best, I won't even a lot of mistakes will never be so. You won't even see the mistakes. If you're going 100 miles an hour playing hard, you're going to make some mistakes, but
Yeah,
you're
for sure.
going to do what's needed to get the best result.
Indeed.
And a part of that is making sure that you learn the plays, but also you have to have to extend. I used to always say you have to extend that same enthusiasm here in the classroom. You have to do it because everything involves numbers. When you
Yeah.
come to the football field, you're hearing 222 Z right numbers. When you're in class, numbers. So once I get them to sort of understand that connection
Mhm.
and that they are all needed as the whole to make things run smoothly, and the encouragement, not so much, oh man, putting them down. One thing I've never done all my years of coaching is curse a player.
Mhm.
Now on YouTube, you see, but I've never cursed a player because I
Yeah.
let them know if I have to curse you, I didn't do a good job of preparing you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure that you are learning the best, and
Yeah.
it's always worked for me. I've had people sort of challenge my methods, but when I used to look at the end, we were in the playoffs, we were in the championship. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? We win.
Yeah. Yeah,
And it
it's
wasn't about
it's a very different way of doing things. But I've always found when you talk about the yell. Now again, I remember my high school basketball coach. Like I said, it wasn't. I'm almost fortunate I wasn't one of the starters because he realized you were only going to get so much out of me. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But for the starters, oh yeah, he has some gems that we still. Now it's weird today because we can kind of laugh about it a little bit as
Mhm.
far as some of the things he would say to the team during
Mhm.
practice and whatnot. Things I won't repeat here.
Right.
But certainly, we all had that kind of coaching. But I've always talked about motivation, and I remember hearing this from as you know, I'm a big Steelers fan. I remember listening to some interviews from Chuck Noll, and he
Mhm.
talked about he doesn't motivate his players. He said or what he couched it as is like the way that he at least not in the way it's like, come on, you can do it, and what's wrong, that kind of thing. But he always motivated through improving their skill sets.
Mhm.
So if I can get you, so again, if you're unmotivated to play because again, if your jump shot is off, or you're not getting open, or you're dropping passes in football or what have you, let's get the skill set up. If I get you to a point where you're not dropping a ball, or if I can get your free throw percentage from 40% to 70%,
Mhm.
that is motivation in and of itself, at least for the right person. And so my thing is, as I always acquired new skills, I felt better about myself
Mhm.
because of the acquisition of the skill.
Yes.
And it showed me that one, I can learn, I can apply, and just seeing the result. I got joy out of just seeing things work. That whether it be in math class, like I remember there were times where I had these blocks in math, trigonometry, almost kicked my butt.
I love trigonometry.
And then, but I don't know. I don't even know what happened. I don't know if I got, I don't know, inspiration or what, but I know my teacher, she would work with me. She was patient and whatnot. But once I got it,
Mhm.
and then the thing is, everybody came around. I had other teachers come around because teachers talk with each other and stuff.
Mhm.
And they would come to me in the hallway. It's like, what you been doing?
Mhm.
what's all this stuff going on? You used to get C's, C minuses, and now you're getting A's. What's going on? I'm like, but
Mhm.
that just gave me such a high. Like I wanted more of it. So again, that learning zone could be a powerful motivation place. Motivation doesn't have to be rah rah or say kick them in the pants and all this kind of stuff. It's certainly for those who are willing
Mhm.
to spend some time in the learning zone, getting out of, extending from your comfort zone.
Yes.
That could be a powerful place to help you overcome certainly your fear zone and where your comfort zone is negative. Because like I said, I had to learn that a comfort zone is not always a negative place.
Mhm.
That you can really start going in a positive direction. That certainly leads to our last zone, which is in this case the growth zone. So a lot of times things start out with, again, what you want. What visions do you have for yourself? Do you want to be a starter? Do you want to be a contributor in the ways you want to do it? If you're in high school, do you want to play in college? So you can once those skills come into play with the right mindset, now you can start actualizing those goals. Like I said, so when my daughters started out, kind of unfocused in the beginning. Like she had a rough freshman year. I mean, she was just we were coming out of the pandemic and just a new environment and getting adjusted. And she wasn't, necessarily emotionally. I think that almost 2 years of high school during the pandemic time, I think it stunted her a little bit in terms of her emotional state. And so she had a sort of a tough transition. But then once she started coming to her own into her junior year and then to her senior year, and she started putting things together, now she's like, almost to the point where she's starting to appreciate and live, some of those things that that she wanted. Certainly other aspects of this, again, setting new goals that you can get certainly in the growth zone to go bigger than you were before. Finding purpose. And then the last one, just, so we can kind of talk about these, collectively, again, conquer objectives. So again, once you get these skills, now you can, once you have the skills, where do you then take those skills to apply it to, again, the things that you want in life? But I think so much happens, for me at least, it happens in that learning zone that I can then take it from there. So, so again, have you conceptualized this? How have you applied it with the growth, and what kind of results have you seen over time? And I can certainly share from my, certainly from my clients and from young people that I've worked with. But what kind of results have you seen? Certainly with these players, once they get this perspective, once they can kind of master the learning zone, where do you see guys sort of take up from there? What kind of results have you seen over time?
I mean, you spoke on it as it relates to your own life and, just academically, you know,
Mm.
uh, having opportunities to speak with 15 young men in a group, um, able to give that same message about self improvement, self evaluations. I could see where I had students, some had behavior issues,
Mm.
some had truancy issues, some had delinquency issues, meaning trouble with the law, and some had academic issues. So just allowing them to be in that space and express what their feelings were, what their emotions were, what they were going through, and supporting each other on providing solutions to be in a better space. A lot of those things improved. Young men were used to be on probation, whatever. They started, you know, when they started to show up, everything else sort of improved. They came to school more. The grades improved. Um, they were able to have better relationships with their parents, mother, father. So, again, the process is what I enjoyed to getting there. I understood that we can have 16 sessions
Yeah.
you might not get it into the 20th session.
Right. Right.
And I didn't look at it like, oh, I had a conversation. I think I see that all the time. Oh, I had a conversation with him. I talked to him about it, but they still, when did you have a conversation? 3 years ago?
Mhm.
4 years ago? You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And sometimes
that
as you,
consistency.
yes, and that consistency, and as you grow, you know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people sort of dismiss that. Oh, I had a
Mhm.
conversation. No, they were 9 when you had the conversation. Now they 15. They need those conversations more. And setting those SMART goals, being realistic. Sometimes you have to set goals that are attainable. Everybody wants to be a millionaire. Okay.
Mhm.
What are the steps it takes to be a millionaire based off the path you want to go?
Yeah.
And are you willing, again, to learn those skills that you need to get to that space? And for me, I think where I saw my biggest growth is just, uh, and I'll say it in my marriage, just not giving up so easy,
Mm.
so quickly.
Yeah.
Some used to get on my nerve. I'll be like, oh man, I'm out. I ain't got time for it. I ain't gonna stick around. I ain't go yah back and forth, and I ain't listen. I just stick with what it is, what the truth is gonna be,
Mhm.
and people think, and I had to sort of checking my own self, because sometimes being a coach and a mentor and a counselor, I'm always trying to coach and counsel. So I just like, hey, okay, people, I told them I did my job. They can apply it or not, however they see fit. And I just sort of was able to disconnect with trying to always give my viewpoint, or even if it was stuff that I know is 100% true.
Mhm.
If they didn't receive it, I was good with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was good with that. Let me make
Right.
this last point. In working in the schools, any mentoring, counseling program, don't you know, if to have a successful campaign, you only have to improve 30%.
Right.
But when I used to have my sessions, and every 2-3 weeks, it was about 50 of us, right? We all had our own school. They will pull up our numbers based off participants. I usually had about 55 to 65 students that would sign up, because everyone had to be consented by a parent. Some students would fill it out themselves, have their parents sign it. Some students, I had to chase them down. I
Mhm.
always called the parent here, send it home with him. I'll sign it, give it back. So I would
Mhm.
always get my consents in a short period of time, maybe 2-3 weeks. I'll have 50 students that I was able to do, right? Uh, And then when I look at the numbers, I was either first or second, always in
Yeah.
the top 3 as
Yeah.
far as students participating and improvement in one of those academics, delinquency, truancy, behavior, right?
Right.
So they always had improvement with that. And what was it? We had to do parent surveys where the parent had to, and all my surveys was always favorable.
Yeah.
So, and I look back on it now, I'm like, yeah, I can make a difference.
Yeah.
I made a difference, and I appreciate, because a one kid that I had was probably one of my worst students. Well, his situation was probably one where he had a father that was in prison.
Mhm.
His father used to call him and, I guess, antagonize him, talking about, I can't wait till you join me here, and I'm like, so when the teacher brought him to me, one of the first conversations I asked him, I said, man, what do you want? He said,
Mhm.
I don't want, he said, I can tell you what I don't want. He said, I don't want to go to prison. You're not going. And within the time he graduated, because I got with him in his sophomore year, he had like $200,000 worth of scholarships.
Boom.
He had was in the top 2 in cross country. He ended up going to Eastern Illinois,
Mhm.
graduated, and he's doing the job that I did.
Wow.
So
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, and that's like I said, the result. I think one thing I really appreciate what you said was, again, certainly the person has to be well. So I don't want to or make any of this sound like yeah, anybody can do this. The reality is a lot of people won't do this. And I think we have
For
to be
sure.
clear on that as well. You can't save every kid or again the person. Again, I've gone through it with clients or whatnot, training and whatnot. Look, not everyone's going to follow the program because I can work with you when you in my space. What you do, what's in your refrigerator. I'm very specific. I do strength training.
Mhm.
I'm not a diet coach because
Right.
because I literally I can't control what you put in your mouth. I'm not with you 24/7. I've written out meal plans. I've written out diet plans. What what you need to be eating, either to gain size or to lose weight. I teach people specifically about how macronutrients work, and all those things. What you do in the stress of how you manage stress, whatnot. Some people are stress eaters, and you come to me, and you can talk to the moon. Yeah, man, I'm gonna lose 10 pounds in a week or whatever. And I'm just saying,
Right.
because all these other things are not aligned. I mean, you like I said, the mind isn't right. And so part of this also is not just a set. So part of this is a set of activities, but a lot of this is also a mental space that you must be in.
For sure.
And how all of this works together. So we have this last slide here that really where we start at. Again, that comfort zone could be again a very private place, a place that where you're not, it's safe and control, but there's you can stay in that shell and not come out of it. And out of that grows a fear zone when you try to stretch out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get into that learning space. If you really will, if you can get through and learn these new skills and extend out of that, then that can certainly come to the final, which is the growth. And certainly what Coach talked about was the growth. I've had that just with personal clients, not only just in the physical training, because I've always looked at physical training as a training for life.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I'm talking a lot of times, or we're in between sets or what have you, before to go to the next exercise, and sometimes even the post exercises where I really do a lot of my work, because I'm not just interested in you having big muscles. That doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
motivate me. I want growth, not just physically, as our pie chart certainly represents, but I want to see you growing in all aspects of your life. And I think for me, I've used the tool of physical training
Mm-hmm.
in order to encourage and get people to see how this applies to your career, for example. And I've had guys who came out, couldn't do a pull up, like just a body weight chin or pull up, and got them to the point where they were doing 10 plus pull ups. And just the confidence and the validation that they got from something that they might have feared at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're able to succeed here. Was if I can do this, you can apply this into your workplace as well. And I've known people who've gone in and now they're VPs in different companies. Because of just the skills that they've learned over time. That they, like, I gave them a set of tools
Mm-hmm.
that they could relate to and then apply to life. So I'm real big on trying to use relatable experiences that they can really buy into in order to inspire them to do these other things.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I've had people who've whether it be in spiritual matters, come to faith out of sessions that we had, and it was kind of unconventional because I didn't just go and just read the Bible stories or whatever. I want to go in, how does this apply to your life?
Mm-hmm.
Or using their reality and seeing how certainly living in a certain spiritual way can affect in a positive way the realities that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And getting those calls from people saying, because of you I become this. And there's no higher honor for me in that. When I've been able to help people get to that other place. So when people say, hey, you know what, I never considered that before or whatever, but you put it in such a way, it's not the same old kind of lesson or whatever that I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten before, that now I can really see it. And so that's the high for me. I mean, that's reward enough. I mean, it's to the point where I would do that for except for my time. Now, I do there's a compensation there, but a lot of that stuff I would do for nothing
Hmm.
because of the benefits that I've seen people how they get from it. So just to so we talked about these zones. So the question ultimately again, what zone are you spending most of your time in? Because again, everybody can exist in one of these places, and it's normal. We're human beings. I don't know if you get scared anymore, Coach. I get scared of certain things to this day. So again, there's nothing wrong with that. But again, what do you dwell on?
Hmm.
Your mental space, your physical time, your money. Where do you invest? Do you always invest in your comforts? How much are you willing to invest, or your fears? How much are you willing to invest in your learning? How much are
Hmm.
you willing to invest in your growth? Both financially, mentally, spiritually, physically. These are questions you have to really ask yourself, but everything starts out in that comfort zone.
For
But if
sure.
you want something different in your life, you must go through these zones of growth.
Yes, sir.
And so this is yes. Go
No,
ahead.
it's funny. Just in this um, weekend alone, I am stepping out of my comfort zone and going into a fear zone
Mm-hmm.
because I've always said I'll never go camping or anything in the woods nowhere outside of a military base. I've always said that. I used to tell my wife, we should go to camping. No, I'm not going out there, wild animals, people running through the woods. No. So I've always had that fear. And for some reason, about a month ago, I was like, let's go to the cabins.
So
And she was like, she booked it, but it just brought that to my attention. Like, I'm in a fear zone because I was afraid of it.
mm-hmm.
And now I'm here, it's nighttime. I got all the lights on. I had to go to sleep here.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, wake up. So right now I'm conquering one of those fears,
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
just even right now, so it's different. Getting
Indeed.
here, oh my God, I was nervous
Yeah.
the whole time because like I said, those winding 2-lane highways coming
Yeah.
down a hill, up a hill, man, let me tell you something. I done seen more mountain ridges than I ever want to see. But it's a beautiful country, a beautiful drive, man. So yeah, so I'm here, man, and I'm gonna enjoy the whole
Absolutely.
weekend.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned, just in full disclosure, the plan is for me to address certainly one of my biggest fears,
Mm,
uh, either this summer or in the fall,
okay.
because we're putting some programming together for young, for teenage boys and whatnot. We're putting together, like I said, through my church, we're putting together like a mental program, spiritual program, developmental programs. One of the things that we want to do or to interact with them is gun safety.
Yeah,
And one of my biggest fears,
yeah.
I've never shot a gun.
Shot it good. Okay.
I've even holding one,
Yeah.
is something that it's just never sit right enough. One of my clients is a cop, and he just he came out and he had his 45, he had his weapons, and when I say here, hold it, and I'm like,
Mhm.
this is so Pete, is that will I go skydiving? I'm not there yet, sir. So now that one, I'll be very happy in my comfort zone that I will not go skydiving. So
Mhm.
for sure, but certainly the gun thing is certainly something, or at
Yeah.
least the way we're approaching it is something that I hope to challenge myself this year on,
Yeah.
and to hopefully overcome. Now, that doesn't mean I'm gonna, buy 20 guns and have a
Right.
stockpile and all the kind. I'm not doing that, but just to be the ability to overcome some of those things. No, you cannot teach me. Uh, but obviously, and that's the thing. We go with these these young men, and go to like licensed firearm
Mhm.
training facilities and whatnot, and learning how to, gun me, all those things. And I've seen different stats and different statistics say, the more you learn about them and how to handle them safely, there's oftentimes a reduction in the amount of incidents and gun violence and things of that nature. So,
Mhm.
so this is something that's going to be part of, some of our, development overall. Because you
Mhm.
may want to at some point want to own, for certainly for protection or where you're at, but learning how to handle things responsibly. And that's one thing, certainly, even though my folks from the South, like in the South, as you be learning how to, you shooting a gun at, bullseyeing at 8 years old, it's just a different world down there. But I grew up in the Northeast where, a lot of, certainly gun ownership is very restricted here.
Mhm.
And you just didn't have a need for it. But, so I'm going to challenge myself in that regard, I think this year. And so I'll keep, certainly it'll be part of my pie for sure. Because
Yeah.
I know that fear zone is going to be coming up, and I'll be, I may be feeling a certain way as we get closer to the initiative once we book
Mhm.
that, and so we're looking at again late summer into the fall. We're
Mhm.
looking to schedule that, and for me to be a part of that, and it'll just be one other thing that that I've grown to, still going back to that training about get out of your comfort zone.
Mhm.
And so that's one thing I just want to master, not for the sake of just being able to shooting guns, but just something that I don't want to be ruled by my emotions over.
Right.
And
Right.
the only way you can really do that is going through, again, learning the new skill of how to, again, handle a gun, and then we'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, but I think this has certainly been a fruitful discussion. So again, one of the goals of the show, we don't want to be with you long. We understand that folks have things to do, and we
Mhm.
certainly have things to do also. And Coach, certainly appreciate you being, even though you're on your little break, hiatus, but you're still committed to the show and whatnot. So
Yeah.
we
She gave me an hour and a half.
there
She
you
gave me an
go,
hour
and
and 30.
we're nearing that time, so we don't want to, especially for Mrs. Coach Ferg, we certainly don't want to violate that time, and and I thank her for certainly allowing certainly this to take place as well. So with that, any closing thoughts as we come to the end of the show, and again, um, I'll be looking for the feedback for those of you in the chat. Appreciate you. Make sure you hit the like button,
Mhm.
that you that it certainly helps the show's algorithm. Send your feedback, drop your comments in. We like to get some feedback, always looking to improve and make the show better.
Yes, sir.
But if you enjoy the content, share this with people who could benefit from this. If you know somebody who lives too much in the comfort zone or is operating in their fear zone too much, how do you get out of it? Hopefully this will be some content that for those who are willing that they can consider. But Coach, certainly any final final thoughts as we come to the end of the show. And Pete, if certainly again, thank you again for the opportunity. If you want to come back up and to close us out or give your 2 cents on how we did tonight. But again, I thank you once again
Yeah, finish up, and I'll
for
have you.
the
I'll
opportunity.
give you my 2 cents in a minute. Go ahead, guys.
You got it. You got it. Go
All
ahead,
right.
Coach.
Now, really quick, Brother Benning, you spoke about what you're going to be doing this summer with some young guys, and you going into that weapons training knowledge. Check in with their fit emotions at that time, how they feeling, because you're going to get a different variety of emotions going on. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So just check in with that just to break the ice and have each other, just so they can understand that we all got some little tension going on in
Yeah.
this moment. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. Definitely providing that information. But listen, man, again, what we're doing is not to put any demands on anybody. It's just allowing people to get information that they may be able to apply to themselves or family members, or like Brother Bennett stated, someone who just may not know or may just be looking for information just to be better. So again, I just appreciate the time and opportunity. And listen, man, I'm looking forward to weeks to come, man, so we can just get, I don't know, man, it just seemed like a lot of what I see is people living in fear.
For sure.
Everybody's scared of
Very much so.
something,
Yeah.
and sometimes it can be overbearing. But yeah, man, listen, man, salute to you, man. Appreciate you. You know what I'm saying? Even want to, do this with me. Sparta, man, salute to you, man. Just providing the space, man. And you never know, man. Pretty soon, man, we be on TV, man. So you never
I'm not
know,
gonna lie to
man.
you guys. The ultimate goal for this network to stream 7 days a week, 3 times a day. That's the ultimate goal.
Awesome. All right, Ghost. Any thoughts on your side?
You guys kill it. This is why I wanted you guys to team up. Yeah, I know. It's the only thing. Only feedback. One of you guys has to wear a wig, at least something, kind of a little hair here. I can't have a
That's it.
little.
Nah, this is.
Hey, fuck
Man,
You
my
see
phone
the?
right now.
Hang on. Do you see the symmetry here? The
Oh,
the
man.
the, the skin.
Don't me
The
make
skin
push the
is
button.
tight.
I will push the button. I will push the button.
Sparta, man, listen, man, you can't take
Oh,
two good-looking brothers, man, and just man.
You've reached your limit on talking. Shut the fuck up.
See.
The only feedback I do
Now,
really
we may have
is-
kids watching this show, so I'm just saying,
Right.
try to keep it PG. That's all we say. Yeah.
Have you listened to these kids what they say these
Hey,
days?
now,
I'm just
Sparta,
saying.
it don't matter what they do now. Come
Yeah,
on, we
that's
don't,
it.
we don't.
The
That's it.
only feedback I have for Paul is me teaching you things. We gotta have a little conversation here because don't forget, I learned from the best. My best friend who's a sniper. I learned from CQ. I learned from all military guys. So it's a range literally maybe 10, 20 minutes from here, not even that you can rent a gun and they have an instructor with you. It's a perfect way to get yourself wet, get your feet wet before you go to this. That's how a lot of my friends, oh, I want to get into a firearms. Like, okay, before you shoot yourself in the foot, I'm going to take you to Sunhill. I'm like, what's Sunhill? And it's an instructor with it at all times. That's a perfect about that. And so let's talk about it off air and figure out a day maybe you can come up and kind of shoot some rounds off and see how you like it.
We'll see. All right, we can talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Except that you guys killed it. That's the only thing. The only thing I'm gonna you guys want to do a schedule update or should I do it?
Yes, yeah, you have to do your schedule update. Yep.
Okay, so guys, this week on Saturday at the Hangout, we are talking about Legend of Optimus Prime. Black David, it will be running that show. That was his idea. Gray Area is gonna be on like always. I just don't remember the topic again. It's just been a long week already. And me, Paul, and Dave will probably right. We're going to the Flea Week, New York.
Yeah, I think that's still on. If
All
anything
right.
changes,
It was still on. If anything changes, I will be updating you guys.
okay.
So on what's the next day? On Tuesday, my show, Spartan Arena. Excuse me. Stop judging others. Keyword: stop judging others. Big key thing. Anybody's welcome to come on. Please let me know if you do. Wally and Dave are gonna be talking about Dr. Stone. Not familiar with the anime. And correct me if I'm wrong. Are you guys doing development zone?
So we did that today. So that's the flip. So today was about the development zones. Next week's show, I know today's title was The Power of Words, Building and Breaking. So that will actually be the topic for next week. So again, you can probably keep that same banner if you want to flip to the banner for this week. But yeah, so we'll dive into that next week and carry out that discussion.
All right. Except that. Paul, final words.
Nope, I'm good. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
All right. So for
man, I'm
future
good.
reference, guys, I will not be here. I'll let these gentlemen take over from now on. I just want to make sure they're okay for the first show. So I will trust them with my baby, with everything I have, because I know these guys will do a great job. Except that this was the Spartan Institute Network. I am Ghost Sparta. He is Mr. President. He is Coach. As always, let me get this ready. Hang on a second because I am a little behind. Where are you? As always, stay fresh, stay safe. I'll see you guys at the next one.
Right.